Movie starts with 90 seconds of Chicago porn, complete with the mechanized phallus known as a train. It's like, here's a sweeping shot of Chicago buildings, now the train. Another sweeping shot of Chicago buildings, now the train. I haven't even popped my cherry Twizzlers yet, and now I've got a useless boner in a theater.
I took your advice.
Jesus, Christina, the man just woke up. This is how you talk to people who just startle woke from a deep sleep?
What is that? Chicago.
Why does this guy assume that Jake Gyllenhaal means the city when he's pointing in that direction and not something else? Wouldn't Ron Weasley's brother want to get a clarification before jumping to this guy doesn't know what Chicago is?
Did you see that?
What's kind of weird about Coulter's first trip into the source code is that he somehow doesn't remember anything about getting there. I know it's supposed to be disorienting, but how does he not remember what he was told to do before being sent here? Of course, later we find out that the people in charge really want to keep him in the dark about everything, so maybe they just hooked him up and said good luck and press start.
Oh. No.
Jake Gyllenhaal is freaked out by a reflection in a time travel movie cliche. Also, I'm pretty sure Jake beat his mirror image to this spot during this camera move, but really, that's a reflection on how great an actor he is.
Everything's gonna be okay.
Ooh, is this the train that Mr. Glass derailed in that Bruce Willis movie Unbreakable? Man, M. Night had a ton of stories that split from this incident. Stealing your cold open from that epic time loop episode they did in Star Trek The Next Generation. Yes, it's a worthy cause, but it's not quite having the same effect. The bean appearing in the transition from the train explosion back to the source code tank is probably the most mind-bending inconsistency in the whole movie. We will be told multiple times this is not time travel, so how can Sean or Coulter have a memory of something that hasn't happened yet? And if any of you start shouting it's quantum something bullshit at me, I will quantum superposition my foot up your ass.
Some confusion is perfectly normal at this stage, Captain.
Ooh, is this the same kind of time travel from that Bruce Willis movie, 12 Monkeys?
Find the bomb, and you will find the bomber.
What kind of logic is this? They think he's just gonna stumble on a guy holding a bomb in the middle of the train?
It's the same train, but it's different.
Which I can only assume is code for, hey, don't you dare mention any inconsistencies between loops, because it's not exactly the same train each time. Except it is the same train every time, because it has to be, or none of this shit's worth dick. Also, being naive enough to think that won't stop me from pointing out the inconsistencies between loops anyway.
Oh, that's funny. What are you, a comedian?
Ha, get it? Because he's stand-up comedian Russell Peters, Illinois. Also, I know a lot of people are loyal to their state, but brandishing that loyalty on your wallet is frankly ill-nauseating. A huge plot point in this movie is that the bomber leaves his wallet in his seat because he wants it to be found in the wreckage later, and people will think he's dead or an innocent victim. I'm not one to think criminals are smart or think of everything, but why put this out there when there's a chance someone could find it and try to give it back? Why not under the seat? And it's not like a wallet being found after the bombing is going to exonerate him, especially since we find out later that he posted anti-government rhetoric this morning online. You know, things that terrorists do. It's not like it proves he's dead either, since he's planning on bombing something else after this train. Oh, is this that same train with a bomb that Bruce Willis searched in that Bruce Willis movie, Die Hard with a Vengeance? I swear to God that the composer for this movie is trying to redo the Fugitive score here. It's like the Chicago setting demanded it. Throughout this movie, people are identified by the driver's license. Sean is the only person who uses a school ID. Everyone else in this movie can apparently drive, but choose not to. Does Goodwin really need this newspaper headline constantly on display up here? Is she likely to forget what she's investigating?
Every second spent explaining things puts more innocent civilians at risk.
Then just explain it the one time. Give him the information he needs so you don't waste even more time skirting around the information you eventually decide to give him anyway. Also, considering how much time it takes for Coulter to find the bomb and the bomber, it's downright amazing that another incident doesn't happen. Think about all the shit they had to do to get to the bomb site, find a suitable candidate for Coulter to jump into, and how much time it takes him to figure things out. The bomber takes goddamn forever to make his next move.
The train explosion was the first attack of a series. There are going to be more.
How the did they know that? Did the bomber leave a message somewhere promising more? Later they find out the guy was posting anti-government screeds on the internet, and maybe he says something in those rants that tell them more bombings are coming, but if they already know that, then they don't really need to know the identity of the bomber anymore, do they?
The explosion was timed to engulf the passing freight train, which means the bomber had to be watching both trains when the call was made.
So why are we bothering with the source code on the train then? If you believe there's a bomber out there planning another attack, then the bomber wasn't on the train during the explosion. Really comes down to this wallet mistake the bomber makes, and I can't believe they thought they'd get this lucky. Also, maybe they think there's more than one bomber out there, and that this person is just one of many. But if they think the bomber is working with a group, Coulter would need to know that if he finds them. For the most part, though, everyone acts like it's one person acting alone who was still on the train when the bomb exploded and is still out there ready to bomb more shit, and you can't have it both ways.
As always, you will have 8 minutes.
Okay, he has 8 minutes, but is that 8 minutes in the real world too? If this is all a computer program, why can't they just run this over and over again without pausing? Why do they have to wait the full 8 minutes too? So the train isn't the same each time, but this f***ing duck is somehow a universal and temporal constant?
I took your advice.
Why would Christina have her head propped up on her hand like this if she didn't the first 2 times we saw this? It's not like Coulter did anything differently when he woke up this time.
Did anyone else come out of that bathroom today?
Well, I saw you coming out of there.
Me?
Holy shit, welcome to the M. Night version of this movie where Sean was the bomber all along. That would have been f***ing rad, but unfortunately we are not nearly far enough removed from 2021 for the mere mention of M. Night to not trigger memories of that piece of shit movie old. So, here's another sin for that. This is clearly a blank journal that Sean has fashioned into a 2-day per page diary. So why didn't he just buy a 2-day per page diary? We have time travel in this universe, but not diaries to suit specific scheduling needs? Also, why wouldn't he put down the time that he's meeting Christina for coffee? This man is teaching our children, people!
Look, why don't you leave me alone, please? Or I'll call the police.
With what? I thought you said you didn't have a phone.
Is this supposed to be some sort of gotcha? He could easily use a phone inside the station or yell for someone to call the police if they aren't already there.
You know, you have no right.
It's pretty clear to me that this guy has no intention of bombing a train. I mean, yeah, you can never tell who's the bombing type, but this guy isn't even in a proper place to detonate one. Why hasn't he ruled this guy out yet?
It wasn't you.
Well, duh. One of the few pieces of information that Goodwin gave you was...
The explosion was timed to engulf the passing freight train, which means the bomber had to be watching both trains when the call was made.
Why is Coulter ignoring the only lead he has? Fortunately, for the climax of this movie, Sean gets killed in a freak accident. But what would have happened if he hadn't? We're about to be told that nothing exists outside the 8-minute loop. So does some natural disaster wipe him out at exactly the 8-minute mark regardless? Why wouldn't the memory just end?
How much time does he have?
Some, but not a lot.
Sentences that aren't worth the oxygen used to exhale them.
Now, there's another peculiarity about the brain.
It contains a short-term memory track that's approximately 8 minutes long.
If this method of going back in time works using someone's memory bank, then how the f*** was Coulter able to get off the train at the station? Wouldn't it require Sean Fentress to have a photographic memory of everything that was going on at the station, even though in real life he was on the train? Why don't the graphics of this open-world simulation start to malfunction whenever he goes somewhere Sean didn't go? Honestly, it sounds like Sean's memory would also have to know every single iteration of the multiverse whenever Coulter changes something that didn't happen the first time.
Sean Fentress died on that train. You two share compatibility.
In terms of gender, body size, and your synaptic maps.
Yeah, but why the f*** does that even matter? Once he jumps into Sean Fentress, he's just playing some sort of quantum leap game. I guess having a body that's like your own helps you in some way, so you feel comfortable moving around, but put him in someone that has better access to the train, for Christ's sake!
You cannot exist inside the source code beyond Fentress's 8 minutes.
And yet he will. Rutledge is either deliberately hiding the fact that he's invented a time machine, or he somehow hasn't realized he's invented a time machine.
It gives us access to a parallel reality.
Hang on a minute, which one is it? Are you replaying the last 8 minutes of a person's life, or are you creating an alternate reality? Because those are two very different things, and Felix seems to be acting as if they are not.
No, but I pulled her off the train.
Ooh, is this like that not Bruce Willis movie Donnie Darko? The scientists go to great lengths to say this isn't time travel, and Coulter should know that anything he does during his mission doesn't change anything. But since he doesn't seem to get it, however, it would be easy to say, nothing you do actually changes anything, you're in a very large holodeck, and this is just some dude's memory, stop being a dick. However, they wait until he gets back to finally say this shit in plain language. Movie cheats the evacuation footage by showing a normal shot of everyday Chicago traffic.
It's a small office containing a strongbox. Inside is a loaded handgun.
Why are they only telling him this now? Why are we drip-feeding valuable information to the one person standing between you and a nuclear attack?
Soda can. Coffee spill.
The Groundhog Day kind of movie hasn't had many imitators until recently, and this movie came out before a lot of them. But I think we can safely say this is the person who can't possibly know everything that's going to happen, proves it to someone, but that someone still doesn't believe it cliché. Also, Coulter wastes a full minute flexing his time and sharing shit with Christina that she will never believe, and even if she does, won't make a blind bit of difference to the mission at hand. Unless she's the bomber, he should just ignore her and get on with it. This sci-fi movie with a cool premise is brought to you, of course, by Dunkin' Donuts. Is the time it takes to get the gun really worth any benefit it might bring? He spends precious minutes stealing it, risks getting caught, and all that so he can maybe shoot someone into a confession? All I'm saying is that Kenneth Branagh didn't have a gun, and he found a whole bunch of murders on a train.
But we're wasting valuable time here.
So fucking send him back in! Charge the things! Flux the doodads! And get on with it!
You should have found a suspect by now.
I understand this is the military and everything, but why do they think he should have found a suspect in those 8 minutes he gets every time he goes back? Do they expect him to see someone twirling their mustache and tying some lady to the tracks? Even then, that guy probably isn't their bomber. That's how hard it is to find suspects.
I've been having these dreams lately. Really vivid.
Coulter, and I don't think this sin has ever been more appropriate, has time for this. Coulter is a dick to NPCs. Let's talk about the villain's plan. Coulter spots this bag and assumes the owner will hopefully have enough tangential military knowledge to identify the patch he doodled from memory. Fortunately, this pays off, so he then wastes time acquiring her phone, ignoring the phone he knows Christina has and is already using to help him. After finally getting the phone, he searches for Nellis Air Base and mission accomplished. But why didn't he skip all those steps, grab Christina's phone, and just search for the CAOC-N initials that he already has? The Combined Air and Space Operations Center at Nellis is literally the first result. This woman's phone opens immediately to Bing. Also Bing.
I can see my hands and my feet, they still move.
They are a manifestation. They're just your way of making sense of all this.
If that's the case, why did they even need to find a close match like Sean Fentress for him to avatar into? If you can make someone believe they have arms and limbs and that they're inside a capsule that doesn't exist, it seems like you could put this person into anybody you want and not worry about a perfect match.
Are you saying that I'm imagining this? I'm imagining that I'm still alive?
I would have been far less disappointed in Spider-Man Far From Home if the whole Mysterio thing had ended up being another coping mechanism for Captain Coulter here. Admittedly, that doesn't make a lot of sense, but neither do multiverses or any of this quantum bullshit.
You've been too easy on him. No more rest periods.
I know Mad Scientist has got a mad scientist, but Jesus, he's treating Coulter as if he was on fucking death row for murdering his own grandparents, not a soldier that died in service of his country.
Did you find the bomber?
There are hundreds of people on that train.
Great point! There are hundreds of people on this train, and he barely leaves this carriage he starts in. I'm assuming we aren't being shown all the loops, but if he manages to rule out one person per loop, which he hasn't been, this would take almost 2 days of constant looping to rule everyone out.
Well, then check them out one by one. It doesn't matter what you do to them, they're already dead.
I know that they want to stop the next terrorist attack, and they feel like they don't have a lot of time, but it feels like they could have told Coulter a lot more about this process before sending him in multiple times. You can straight up murder these people if you want, would have been a good start. By process of elimination, they could have figured out the bomber wasn't on the train. Sure, it might have been a completely different movie, even terrible, but at least he'd know what the rules are and not be so confused all the time. And isn't having a nihilist movie that's terrible better than having a responsible movie that's good? Anyway, give the man some information, movie! This woman was born in the month of Zeroary.
Please don't blow me up again.
Admittedly, I'm no bomb maker, but why isn't this thing booby-trapped? We find out this phone isn't the only way to blow up the bomb, but its removal consequence-free is still surely something the bomb maker wouldn't want. If you're a bomber, why would you leave your own number in the fucking call history? Okay, maybe he's rung it at some point, but you would totally delete that shit.
Hello?
They pick up? Fucking why? Unless it's the bomb itself calling you to say it's having second thoughts, there's no reason to answer that call.
I'm gonna find you. Turn around.
I mean, has Coulter ever humaned before? Does he not realize that whatever he says in public can be heard by people close to him and not just the person on the other end of the phone call? He takes this guy turning around as absolute proof that he's the bomber without giving it a second thought. Also, Coulter seriously doesn't have a fucking chance if he keeps wasting time on people that he's already investigated. Holy shit, that guy's phone is super loud! Coulter can hear that shit from here, and apparently there isn't enough noise to cover it up while the train boards and deboards. Coulter/Sean's possessed body survives this, and the gun lands conveniently right next to him.
Do you want to see it?
Why does he need to see shit? Why would Coulter let Frost touch anything in this van? He could be setting it off, for all Velvet Buzzsaw here knows.
Sean?
So wait, did the conductor really stop the train after Christina yelled for them to do that? Or did she pull the emergency brake? If she pulled the emergency brake, the conductor can override it if they don't see a good reason, right? I'm just saying, it's very strange that she got the train to stop and she was able to stroll back here without any train authorities or cops looking into it. 9 times out of 10, bad guys can't shoot worth a damn, but because the movie knows none of this matters, Frost is able to predict Christina's position and fatally shoot her blind through the side of the damn van.
Everything's gonna be okay. This isn't the end.
Look, man, paraphrasing Sean Mullins and contradicting the Doors isn't the best use of time right now. You need to find that bomber.
He got into a rented white van in the Glenbrook Station parking lot.
Wait, how do you know that it was rented? Or are all white vans rented? Does no one actually own a white van? Did they cut out the part of the movie where Derek said, "Ha-ha, I rented this van, it's not mine"?
We're going to switch now to a live feed from our Chicago affiliate.
They told the fucking media about the nuclear terrorists they're pursuing? This isn't a high-speed chase that local news stumbled on. Someone would have had to tell the media where they were planning to apprehend the van. What if Frost was watching this news position as well and decided to blow the bomb earlier instead of just giving in?
We finally have a powerful weapon now in the war on terror.
There's probably some subtext here about how useless this program is for most acts of terror. I mean, first it requires an act of terror to work. Then you can't possibly go to each tragedy and find a suspect like this, especially since the terrorist is usually going to die in the act as well. This is an extremely specific case that barely worked. This isn't a Minority Report situation where Coulter can predict crimes ahead of time.
Are you married, Captain?
Quantum scoop!
What you experienced was a shadow.
It was an after image of a victim on a train.
Look, if you keep saying it, I'm going to keep saying it. They keep insisting this whole thing is like replaying a video, when it's more like being in a VR version of a movie that he can change the ending to. Now, if only we could use that technology for the final 8 minutes of this movie.
It's a computer program, Captain.
You're wrong, Goodwin. You're just plain wrong.
Somehow Coulter is right, but he really shouldn't be. I mean, he's arguing with people who built and operate the program that he's just playing inside of. This would be like a video game character trying to convince me that all the NPCs have been shooting are actually real and have lives and families of their own, and then being proved right. While there's a lull in anything wrong going on, I think my favorite part of sinning this movie is that some of you might actually discover this movie. It's really, really good. It's going to remove a sin right now so that I can claim to be a good person later. Coulter grabs Derek and chains him to this pole while the train's doors are still open and people are still milling about. How the fuck does he get away with this without anyone seeing him? Yeah, Derek is the bad guy, but how do you prove that? I know he's handcuffed and shit, but why leave the phones that control the bombs anywhere near him?
Don't be too hard on yourself. I imagine it's not an easy call to make.
They actually got Scott frickin' Bakula to be the voice of Coulter's dad in this movie. That's goddamn inspired.
Thank you for that moment of zen, but nobody was talking to you.
Why don't you just mind your own business?
Listen, Russell Peters, you can't tell people to mind their own business at the same time you're not minding your own business. It's impossible to read keypad.
Women always mess up my last name.
While Russell Peters does his tight five, I'm wondering, have they still not found that Derek guy chained to the pole yet?
20 seconds.
Make it 10.
What? Are you gonna plug him into the source code box and redo this until he can get it done in the arbitrary 10 seconds you just commanded? Also, can't we just
Shoot the glass.
sometimes you wanna go where everybody knows your name. And they're always glad you came. Jake Gyllenhaal is in a confusing time travel movie where a version of him ends up dying cliché. Movie has a perfect ending. The real Coulter dies. The last thing he does in this world is lock lips with Michelle Monaghan, and this moment is suspended in time. But the movie somehow thinks that this life can continue on afterwards, and why not? It's a fairy tale. He also gets to take Sean Fentress's identity like he's some sort of Chris Pine in Wonder Woman 1984. Also, maybe we've already said this, but it needs to be hammered into our skull. Sean Fentress is no more. His consciousness is completely robbed by this process, and someone else gets to take his identity and probably his dream girl. All the other shitty people on this train get to move on with their lives in some multiversal way that they'll never know, but Sean gets an absolute raw deal here that we forget because we like Jake Gyllenhaal so much. Also, sure, Coulter got the girl. That's the important thing. Everything else is secondary and unimportant and not worth thinking about. But what about his job, his friends, family members? If he decides to interact with anyone who knows him well, this is going to be super awkward, right? It'll put him in a number of weird situations. I'm just asking, where's my source code companion movie, Farce Code? Seriously, what the movie is saying is that Rutledge has accidentally hit upon a technology that can send Coulter's consciousness back in time into the body of some poor bastard who, by the way, shouldn't be dead anymore, and go on to live a life in an alternate reality. I suppose this could all be a simulation within the source code program, but if that's the case, is the program just building all this on the fly? And who's telling it to do so? Honestly, this movie makes Deja Vu look like a goddamn doctoral thesis on time travel by comparison.
Everything's gonna be okay.
I'd remove all the sins right now if the train exploded anyway. Derek somehow got out of his chains, found the detonators, and blew it up while Russell Peters does stand-up and Jake Gyllenhaal smooches the cute girl.
Come here, I want to show you something.
Not for the first time, a man is stunned after his romantic interest has to literally guide him to the bean after what feels like repeating the same 8 minutes of activities over and over again.
Captain Goodwin, anything I can help you with?
No, that's fine. I'll come back later.
Why wouldn't she report this? It makes sense if she knows that this means they've accomplished their mission, but this version of Goodwin shouldn't have a fucking clue what's going on. She just received proof that time travel exists and she's gonna come back later?
You thought you were creating 8 minutes of a past event, but you're not. You've created a whole new world.
Which, of course, is totally impossible. You probably should think that your whole operation got hacked and this is a big practical joke being played by your coworker. Anyway, it makes for a pretty great movie regardless.
I don't want to talk about time travel shit.
Who are you?
You already have that information, Captain.
I do?
Call my name!
The mass extinction we feared has already begun, and we are the cause. We are the infection.
Maybe there's a team at work.
Let's see if you can follow me around the room. The drunk Russians on the embankment at 7, 8 o'clock. The couple waltzing around me at the embassy at 9 and 11. The waiter standing behind Hannah at the top of the stairs. Bow tie, 12 o'clock. The other IMF team.
Tell me everything's gonna be okay.
You're gonna be okay! Say the goddamn word!
Everything's gonna be okay.
All hands abandon ship! Repeat, all hands abandon!
This world is about finding your purpose, right? And the only way to do that is to find your own voice. You told us that. I don't feel like an interpreter.
You know what? Next time I'll send you a pizza. I'll see if that makes an impression.
Timeline! This is no time to argue about time. We don't have the time.
Would you mind not shooting at the thermonuclear weapons?
Hey, my name is Derek Frost.
Spider-Man's name is Peter Parker.
Why are you always so bitter, Max?
Why are you wearing that stupid man suit?